as of this video, the most recent Marvel movie to come out is Deadpool and Wolverine. So this first half of the video, I'm gonna explain how I'm gonna be just going over the overall structure of the MCU, and then the second part, I'll actually dive into the movies. And actually, I'll try to talk more about the actual movies and their contents. But before we get into that, subscribe. I have 619 right now, but you can make it 620 if you press that button. And yeah, let's get right into it. The way the MCU is structured, it's structured in a way that if a superhero gets a film, they can have 3 films after that. At least 3 films. And accordingly, the first 3 heroes to get 3 movies were Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor. Only 1 Hulk movie because it's something to do with rights. And by the time these 3 movies were out, the worst one was Thor: The Dark World. But it's honestly not even that bad. It's more like just an okay movie. But these 3 movies don't always have to be specifically tied to that character. These movies have wiggle room. They don't have to completely be about the main character they're featuring, but they can include a larger event as well, which is where comes the Avengers. But this movie isn't tied to a certain character. This is no character's 4th movie in their quadrilogy. We'll come back to that. But other than that, the MCU is putting out straight banger after banger. They have the longest banger after banger streak out of any film series, I think. So obviously Iron Man is the main character, quote unquote, of the MCU. Back then, obviously. So he was the first one to get a sequel, and he was the first one to make it to his 3rd movie. Iron Man 3 came out around the same time that Thor and Captain America were on their 2nd movies. And then Age of Ultron happens, the 2nd Avengers movie. Not as bad as they say. It's not even really bad. I think people say it's bad. Anyways, one of the big 3 is already on their 3rd movie, and 2 of them are about to be. So before they do, Ant-Man comes out, and then Guardians of the Galaxy. And this is where things get split in 2. So Guardians of the Galaxy gets released alongside Ant-Man. So now the Guardians of the Galaxy make this cosmic part of the MCU, what's going on out in space, basically. Because at the end of Age of Ultron, Thanos was revealed. And then Captain America gets his 3rd movie, Captain America: Civil War. This movie was an event when it came out. They revealed Spider-Man existed in this one. And also Ant-Man joins the Avengers, of course. Okay, the story is actually integral for me to tell you in this one. So the Avengers can't agree on what General Ross is proposing, that the Avengers are to be controlled by the government, and that, superheroes can't just exist out there. They need to have some sort of decree, they're just out here doing whatever, just fighting robots, and there needs to be some order. And Cap agrees with this, but Tony is not like this at all. And then everybody else picks sides, and it ends up in a civil war. Also, Black Panther's dad gets assassinated. They introduce him. This is one of the best MCU movies. The action and the dialogue is just mwah. But then, if this is Captain America's 3rd film, then what's happening to Thor? And then there is Thor Ragnarok, which is also one of the best films in the MCU, and a personal favorite of mine. Which, to keep things simple, is more about the cosmic side of the MCU as well, like the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now those 3 have gotten their movies, which leaves Ant-Man getting a 2nd movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and 3 new heroes are introduced: Doctor Strange, Black Panther, and Spider-Man. And Spider-Man: Homecoming. That's the name of the movie. Oh yeah, also Captain Marvel, but nobody liked that. Wait a minute. And then the movie released right before Infinity War was the worst movie the MCU has released to this day, Captain Marvel. This is the moment that the MCU fell off. Captain Marvel. There are no words to express how empty this movie feels. Okay, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but there are only 2 main characters. It's Captain Marvel and Nick Fury, and obviously in the past. But this movie lets its comedy weigh it down. They hype up this they build pressure to the showdown in the end versus about Carol Danvers fighting Yon-Rogg, but he just becomes a pushover. And to help it, there was this whole controversy about wokeness and we need strong female characters. I don't think it was any of that. I think that might have been what they were going for. I know that's definitely what Brie Larson was trying to push, but the movie was just plain bad. The only way I can describe it, it felt emotionless. It just felt empty. There was something that was supposed to be there and there just wasn't. There was that whole deal with I feel okay, it's been 2 years, maybe 3 years since I've watched all of the Marvel movies in order, but I have a good memory. I remember there was that lady who was inside Captain Marvel's head, and that she was the only one who could, stop her from using her powers. And they didn't utilize her in that movie that well. It should have come down to that. It should have come down to Yon-Rogg. Anyways, this was the moment that the MCU fell off. No movie in the MCU has gotten even close to being as bad as this one has been. This did not even do the bare minimum like Thor: The Dark World did. But at least afterwards, we got the best palate cleanser, Infinity War. It was a blessing to be alive when this was coming out. It was I loved it. It was great. You just had to be there. I'm gonna feel sad for when I have kids that they weren't here to see this. Alright, I'm glazing real hard, but enjoy it because this is before things get really bad. Oh yeah, also in Spider-Man Far From Home and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 come out, the sequels to, both those movies. And then, of course, directly after Infinity War is Endgame, which I'd say, like, people say, like, Endgame is worse than Infinity War. Yeah, I'd say, like, 2/3 of the entire movie were good. The beginning of the movie was more like just, like, setting up what was supposed to happen, but I'd say it wasn't bad. People just compare it to Infinity War. But then after this, things start looking grim. We have the first unnecessary backstory, Black Widow. This movie doesn't even need to exist. Nobody remembers this movie even happened. It's such a shame because the outfits in this movie are amazing. I love the white Black Widow outfits. And I love the Russian Avengers. I forgot what these guys were supposed to be called, but I love Red Captain America. I do like all these characters, but was it really all that necessary? I feel like she should have been in a side character, kind of like the way Black Panther acted in Civil War. I think having Black Widow's, family, quote unquote, should have been something like that. I think everybody was saying this when this came out. Why is Hawkeye not involved? Why is Hawkeye getting nothing? He has a show, but come on. They do him dirty every time. During Endgame, they were like, oh yeah, you guys can stay at my house. Like, it was a perfect opportunity. They could have just switched out Black Widow for Hawkeye, and they could have been like, oh, the Red Room still exists, and then he would gladly take upon that. And he does have children. Maybe it could have happened in between Endgame and, but yeah, this movie didn't have to exist. We could have just, like, left this in the... They're obviously just trying to set up something with this. They weren't actually trying to tell a story. And then there's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This movie is good. People forget about it, though. It was, like, incredibly good. And then there's Eternals, bro. This is, like, the second worst. Like, if there's the worst films of the MCU, Captain Marvel, Eternals, because Eternals is, like, 3 hours long for whatever reason, and then Black Widow, and then Thor the Dark World. Then Spider-Man gets his third movie, Spider-Man No Way Home, which you know what happened in that one. Great, too. It was one of the best things that the MCU put out in a while. I think this might be the best MCU movie, debatably. We'll go over that after. Then Doctor Strange gets his sequel, Multiverse of Madness. This movie wasn't, I liked it personally, but like I did feel like it was missing something. Like, Scarlet Witch was not a good villain in this, and they didn't even have to make her a villain. It's also the first movie where they tried to change the genre, which is a trend that keeps going on after this. Then Thor gets his fourth film, Thor Love and Thunder. This is so bad. This is the MCU's biggest fumble. This movie had everything slated out for it to be good, and Taika Waititi, he just fumbled. Like, it was the greatest concept ever. It was gonna be a black and white scene. It was like rainbowy. Like, just look at this, bro. Like, then Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and that was a good movie. Why is there more movies on this list? There's a lot of Marvel movies. What the heck? Hold on, I'm gonna start recording again. Back to our little chart here, if that's even relevant anymore, because there's a lot of things being introduced already. I mean, why did Black Widow get one movie and then one movie only? I mean, Black Widow, she's obviously only gonna have one movie, because Ant-Man gets his third movie with Kang, and then they retconned Kang. Honestly, bro, controversial opinion, but if I was Marvel and, like, we made a whole movie about this dude and, like, those allegations came up, I would have kept him in there, bro. Like, I could have just recasted it, or, like, they should have just recast the guy who used to be War Machine. And Marvel movies enter this era, which we're still in, by the way, where you can usually, like, there's usually a good part of the movie and there's a bad part of the movie, and they're measured by the character. For example, for an Ant-Man Quantumania, everything involving Kang is good, but whenever MODOK is on screen, the movie gets worse. Same thing in Multiverse of Madness, Strange and Wanda. And of course, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 comes out. Banger. And this era is very much a mixed bag. It's either the most amazing thing you've seen, or it sucks, or it's just not even worth mentioning, like the Marvels, which I just mentioned now. The MCU is losing its structure. And this takes us to Deadpool and Wolverine, the most recent movie as of this recording. 1/3 of this movie was good. The beginning was good, middle was bad, everything relating to, like, when they were in the desert or the wasteland or whatever. I saw this one in theaters. It was bad. But they stuck the landing in the end. I'd say, like, 1/3 of the movie was good. The intro was amazing. Like, the beginning moments, the beginning parts with all TVA, they did that spectacularly. But then the middle, they just kind of lost. They started to lose the story. And the villain just seems like some sort of weird fan fiction. Like, it doesn't feel like... I can't think of her as like, oh, there's a lineup of villains. Like, I can't put her next to Thanos. Like, I can't imagine her and Thanos at the same time. She's just not working. Also, she, like, busted when she died. Like, did anyone pick up on that? But this brings me to another point. So, before all this MCU talk got all tangled up with too many movies, well, in the whole talk about 3 movies per hero, they're starting to break the structure. As I said, Black Widow gets 1 movie because she's dead. Thor has 4 movies for whatever reason, which I guess suits him because since he's like a god and he can survive for however long, but they should have bundled him in another movie as well. I think they should all just really take notes from Civil War. Civil War should be the blueprint of the MCU. Be efficient. Then Deadpool and Wolverine is called Deadpool and Wolverine. Maybe I think they could fix this by just making, like, another X-Men movie, but X-Men, I don't know, because there's so many teams going around. Let's get a recap. Captain America has had 3 movies. Iron Man has had 3 movies. Thor has had 3 movies and a 4th one, but we'll just pretend like this doesn't exist right now. Spider-Man has 3 movies. Ant-Man has 3 movies. The Guardians of the Galaxy have 3 movies, so that leaves Shang-Chi with 1, Doctor Strange with 2, and Black Panther with 2. Captain Marvel has 2. Thor is still alive, which that's supposed to be, I guess you could say he's the galactic side of things. Now, let's just stop and think about all of it. How did we get here? Why are we in this mess? My thoughts when the MCU started trying to introduce the multiverse so quickly was that Infinity War, and then everything that happened before that, are phases 1 through 3. And now we're in, like, what, phase 6? It's starting to feel like Fortnite season, like the way they move too quickly. We're also in chapter 6 in Fortnite as well, if anyone cared. They definitely introduced the multiverse way too quickly. I feel like what they should have done is focus on building up the X-Men and just, like, having fun with that. And of course, to bring Hugh Jackman back, they probably would have only needed to use the multiverse in 1 movie, which would be the case if Spider-Man didn't do something stupid as well. And also there's the fact that Deadpool technically got his 3rd movie in Deadpool and Wolverine. And I think Wolverine is benched from now on, question mark. I honestly think we could just leave Wolverine out of things. And honestly, I might be fine with a recast, because, I mean, come on, just let Hugh Jackman be alive. He's already been through it, man. Like, I think we can just keep Deadpool and the X-Men. There are also a lot of movies in between that just don't matter. Like, we could go without Black Widow, we could go without the Eternals. If you just look at everything after, like, I thought that Captain Marvel was, like, unnecessary. We could just get her out of here. We could get the Eternals out of here. We can keep Shang-Chi. I don't know, there's, like, no correlation between these movies anymore. It feels hopeless. Another thing that also started the downfall of Marvel was Disney Plus. When quarantine hit and they started making movies, they started making shows. I feel like that split their attention, and that's when they actually started making bad shows, bad movies. Not all of those shows are bad. In fact, I'm gonna watch one of them soon, but that is where it started. But it's just everyone in the new MCU is just kind of unlikable, or we're unfamiliar with them, or one or the other. If only they just went back to that same pattern instead of going up to 4s, giving people quadrilogies, then nah, man. I think there should be Deadpool. Actually, no. Deadpool already got 3 movies technically, so honestly, their only hope is if they can secure Hulk somehow, even after all these years. Or they could have done something with Hawkeye. But ultimately, I wouldn't be asking for all this if they just didn't make any bad movies. This video is already very long, so I don't think I'll get to actually speaking on the movies, but I think I told you everything I really want to, actually. So maybe I'll chat in the comments with you guys about a couple things, and maybe I'll clarify some things, but that's it. So don't forget, I have 619 right now, but you can press that button and make it 620, and that's a cooler number. So yeah, see ya, and Excelsior.